Okay, good evening, students. I wanted to follow the pattern I started for the earlier chapters and make a few comments about the chapters in Unit 3. The um, the the chapters, and I think I mentioned this in an email. Chapter 8 is really the foundational stuff for elder lawyers and estate planners, obviously. And obviously, I'm sure you're aware that the university offers a class that's just wills and trusts, I believe. And I know the instructor for that course probably does a very good job. He's a good lawyer. Um, and so I would definitely encourage you to take that course if this is an area you're interested in practicing in. And we know it's a good growth area job wise, so it's a good thing to get a foundation in from a career perspective. But I would encourage you to take that wills and trust class. And obviously, chapter 8 here is just a real broad brush sampling of wills and trusts. And I don't think, from my perspective, I have a whole lot to add other than to make the point that trusts, I think, are really a much preferred tool for planning as opposed to wills. And I'm sure that you gleaned this from the text, but obviously, when you have a will, you are in almost every circumstance required to go to court to have that will probated, as the book describes. And so that involves a lot of kind of unnecessary, tedious stuff, like you have to file an accounting or an inventory, and that's like a public tool of all the assets that the deceased owned. You've got this creditor period in which creditors can come forth and make claims that the estate owes them money. And anyway, it's just sort of a court-driven, tedious, and sort of generally undesirable process. It has its place, and there's good things from it from time to time. But I think most of my clients would prefer to, not have to probate an estate if they didn't need to. And a trust gives you all kinds of options to just keep things very private within the family. So when somebody's disabled or deceased, there's a real smooth transition in a trust so that the successor trustee, as the book describes it, can step in kind of seamlessly and take over and distribute monies and pay bills and so forth. And there doesn't need to be any formal court proceeding to do that. A couple other comments I just wanted to make generally about the choice of a will versus a trust, and I think that's really kind of the choices. Do you want to use a will as the tool that tells the world what is to be done with your stuff, or do you want to use a trust, a revocable living trust, to do that? And the real pros to using a trust are that it's private and it's more inexpensive on the back end because there's no court. You can provide for children by leaving things in trust for children that would otherwise create some problems in probate. You can leave gifts to persons with special needs and leave them in a trust for that person's benefit. You can put stuff in protective trusts if one of your children or your beneficiaries is in a having through a bankruptcy or is in the middle of a divorce, or all kinds of different outcomes. All those things you can do with good trust planning, and unless you have a trust in a will, and I think the book talks about a testamentary trust. The upshot is with a will, you typically don't have that kind of sort of more complete planning. And so the reason that people sometimes don't use trusts are, one, they don't own anything, or they don't feel like they own enough to pay for to spend $1,500 to $3,000 for what a trust typically costs. And so, that would be the big reason people don't use revocable living trusts, is either they don't own significant assets or they don't want to spend the money. But otherwise, they're really very effective tools. And in looking finally at one comment I did want to make. The book talks about intestacy. That's intestacy, intestacy. That's a good lawyer word. It just means dying without a will. But if you die intestate in Illinois, I know my clients are always uniformly surprised to find out that if a married person with children dies, only half of their stuff goes to their spouse and the other half goes directly to kids. I think the thinking was that in old Illinois law, that if you were on your second or third or more marriage, there was the concern of some evil stepmother not helping out the kids, and so I think that was the reason it's done that way. But anyway, in Illinois, that's what happens. If you die and you own stuff in your own name and you're married with children, half goes to your spouse and half to the kids. And I know clients are always surprised to find that out. So, and generally speaking, in just with an eye to the homeworks, I think these homeworks are all really pretty easily attainable. Make sure you understand with forced share, in case that threw anyone off. This is question number 3, or assignment number 3. The spousal forced share is the elective share, or the amount in Illinois if a married person dies and either doesn't have a will or has a will but has no trust. It's the amount that a surviving spouse can claim even if they've been disinherited. So the idea here is that in Illinois law, we don't want spouses to be left out or to be cut out entirely. So if someone uses a will and says, I give everything to my 3 kids and I disinherit my wife and she shall get nothing, when I die, my wife can come in and say, my awful husband disinherited me and I want a third of the stuff that was in his estate when he died. That's what the forced share term is. It's an elective share. Is the term that's a little more common in Illinois. Otherwise, I think those are great questions, and I'm looking forward to each of you responding. If you have any specific questions about Chapter 8, shoot me an email, let me know. Thanks.